We should be going around Scotland next this afternoon on BBC Two in about 3.5 minutes. Now, as we go around Scotland here on Two, we get the views of children and their families about living in the city of Aberdeen.
This is Aberdeen, city by the grey North Sea. It's Scotland's third city, smaller than Glasgow or Edinburgh, tucked away by itself in the northeast part of the country. But it's a very important city all the same. Some parts of Aberdeen are very old and have remained the same for hundreds of years. Other parts are new or have changed completely since oil was discovered in the North Sea. I love it, and so do the people who live here.
As well as being a nice city, Aberdeen's also nice to look at, because it's built of granite. And because it's built of granite, it got the name the Silver City.
Aberdeen is rather expensive in comparison to other parts of the country. I think it's mainly due to the introduction of oil, because oil really is taking over from granite and fishing now.
Lots of children have their dads working on the oil rigs. They have to stay away for a long time, but the oil's brought a lot of wealth to the town.
Aberdeen's the oil capital of Europe because the North Sea supplies so much oil, and Aberdeen's the main port for getting oil.
One place where oil has changed a community is Tory, close to the harbour. Many of the children who go to Walker Road School in Tory live near the harbour.
Old Tory used to be a fishing village until around 1973, and they knocked most of the houses down and put oil tanks in their places.
Aberdeen Harbour is the busiest in Scotland, and the best way to see it is from a boat. Most of the ships in the harbour are used in the oil industry. Some take equipment out to the oil rigs. Others, like this, carry the oil down the coast. These are fishing boats, but Aberdeen's fishing industry is not so busy as it used to be.
At the entrance to the harbour, there are some large walls called breakwaters, and these are to protect the ships in the harbour from the rougher waves out at sea. Up above the harbour, on a hill, is Tory Battery, and it was built in 1860 to protect Aberdeen and Tory from any invasion coming from the sea.
Tory Battery now is a ruin, and it's good for playing in for the children to run around because it's open and there's lots of room and climbing bits.
It's a good spot for looking at boats coming in and out of the harbour.
This one's a supply boat returning from the North Sea. The smaller boat is the pilot boat, which guides all the ships in and out of the harbour.
A lot of the children here at Walker Road School live in tenement houses. These houses are quite tall, but they're made to look even taller because Tory is built on a hill.
These houses are made of granite, so they look big and bold and towering over you.
All over Aberdeen there are buildings of grey granite. It's a very hard stone and lasts a long time, but it's not all grey. These houses have some pink granite in them. And this church is made of many different colours of granite. Aberdeen people call it the tartan kirkie. But most of the granite buildings in Aberdeen are grey, which gives the streets a neat, clean look to them. Jonathan Williamson lives in the west end of the city, where nearly all the houses are granite.
Many people say that granite is a rather boring substance to make a house with, but I think it's very nice. It's very tough and hard wearing, can stand up to a lot. Here in the West End there are some very large granite houses which used to be family houses, but now they're becoming too large and too expensive, so they've been split up into two houses, or even indeed some of them have been changed into hotels or offices.
Some people think granite buildings are dull, but here's a stylish house. It was built for his own family by an Aberdeen builder about 100 years ago.
So where did all the stone for all these buildings come from? Well, the answer is right behind me here. It's a huge hole in the ground, and it's over 450 feet deep, and it's known as the hole that Aberdeen came out of. This was the huge Ruberslow quarry, the biggest granite hole in Britain, which supplied Aberdeen with building stone for nearly 200 years. Today it's no longer in use. But not far from Aberdeen are other quarries which are in use. This is one of them at Kemney, just a few miles outside the city. The granite industry, though, is not what it used to be. Fewer buildings are made of Aberdeen granite now because it's very expensive. But there's a great demand for granite for other things like monuments and stone chippings.
So this is where the Granite City's granite comes from now. And fortunately for us, these large blocks of stone are a lot easier to move than they were in the old days. Even I can do it.
With a little help from a big machine, that is. Although much less granite is used in Aberdeen now, there's still a busy granite industry here. This saw cuts blocks of stone into slices. A guillotine snaps the stone into smaller blocks for building. Building stone has a rough finish, chiseled by hand. Monuments usually have a smooth finish. They're polished by machine.
My name is Emma Barrick. I live in the west end of Aberdeen. My house is very old. It was built in 1773, which makes it 213 years old. In front of the house there's a belvedere. It's made with a wrought iron dome top with sandstone pillars and seats. It's nice to sit under so you can look all around the garden and at the house. We've been in this house for 10 years. My mum and dad have lived in this part of Aberdeen all their lives.
Aberdeen's a sort of a grown-up village. It is only a small population of about, say, 280,000, and everybody knows everybody. Aberdeen has changed a great deal in the last 15 years because the costs have risen. The city itself has developed more houses, and also we've had to adapt to the different nationalities of people coming into Aberdeen, like the Americans, like the Dutch, and like the French.
My dad's in the oil business, as most Americans here are. I've been to London, lived there, lived in Belgium, we've lived in the States, and now we've come here. I like Aberdeen. It's a little dismal sometimes, the weather, but we're going to make the most of it, I think. I'm teaching the kids on my block how to play American football, and they've taken to it quite well, even though I'm the only American here. We practice on the weekends. We're a pretty good team already. We'll challenge anybody that might be out there.
The American community in Aberdeen has its own school. Ron Clem is an American teacher at the school.
There are many American schools around the world for children of business people and oil people, and they want to have an American-type education for their children.
From California to the New York Islands, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land was made for you and me. This land
We're probably a bit different than most Americans in Aberdeen because we've chosen to come here as teachers. Many of the people in Aberdeen are with oil companies, the Americans are, and the other expats, and basically they're told by their companies where they go.
What about the children? How do they find it?
It's great. We love it. It's a nice change. It's a breath of fresh air. The kids enjoy the snow, and it's great.
Here in the American school, we get the same education as we would in the United States. We learn about American history even though we're in Scotland.
Ron and his family have lived in several different countries, so their children have been away from America nearly all their lives.
I like Aberdeen a lot. I mean, it's really great with the snow and the really pretty countryside. And it reminds me of Holland, where I used to live and where I was born. And it's better here than it was in California, because in California, I mean, it wasn't snow. You couldn't sled or anything. It's better here. I like it here.
In our house, I usually make the breakfast in the mornings for us, and that's typically what most Americans do. I make pancakes and scrambled eggs, and sometimes oatmeal.
We've lived overseas for a long time, and even though we still have done that, we decided that we wanted to have like an American lifestyle just for our children's sake, so that we can, you know, let them know what it's like to be an American. They've really never lived in the States much, and we, you know, keep with the same customs and traditions so that they know what it's like to be an American.
Now, did you want to get some Jell-O? Can you show me which kind? Oh, strawberry? Super. One of the things about being an American is that Americans eat different kinds of foods, and in order for our children to still feel American, even though they've been born abroad and grown up abroad, is that we try to serve some of those foods, and they are available in Aberdeen at the American Food Store.
One of the best ways to see a place and really get to know a city or a country is to live there. And we really have the opportunity to really find out about the people there and the culture. And I think that one day we will go back to America, to California to live. But right now we're really enjoying the opportunity that we have here. It's a nice place for our children.
Although the oil industry has brought many Americans to Aberdeen, it's brought people from other countries too.
I'm from Holland and I live in Aberdeen for 2.5 years. When I came, I couldn't speak English at all.
I come from Norway and I've lived here for 1.5 years.
I was born in Brunei and my parents have travelled around the world, so I've lived in different places. But I like Aberdeen best because it's different weathers instead of hot all the time.
Because there are so many newcomers to Aberdeen, lots of new housing areas have been built to provide homes for all of them. This is one new area called Bridge of Dawn, on the outskirts of the city.
Because of the oil, we need much more housing estates, and there's quite a few in Bridge of Dawn. The houses in these estates are quite dear, and they're squashed up to have to pay a little bit extra if you wanted more privacy.
Aberdeen is a very expensive place to live. It's second most expensive after London.
There's an old part of Bridge of Dawn down by the bridge beside the river, and it's got old fishermen's cottages where they used to live, and it's very interesting.
The bridge was named the Brig o Balgownie, and it's made from sandstone, and it was built in the 12th century. The fishermen used to stay here and used to fish at the mouth of the Don, because on those times it was really good for salmon, and across at the other side of the Don there were places for they used to make their nets and dry their nets there.
Near the Brig o Balgownie is an area called Old Aberdeen, where Megan Fisher lives.
This is the High Street, and at one time it was the main street of Aberdeen. But
as it's been built up, it's been left as the old part, and the university's been built up around it. I like living here because all the buildings are, different from most of Aberdeen, and it's unusual and interesting. The atmosphere is quite nice because there are lots of students milling around and going from one lecture to another and just walking around and things. There's always something going on.
The Fishers, like many people at the university, are incomers, but they've lived in Aberdeen for 10 years.
The Aberdeen people are, of course, cut off from the rest of the world, but somehow they make of this a very positive thing. They rely on themselves and they don't seem to envy people in the rest of Scotland. They don't envy people in England. They're very happy.
I go to Seton School, which is quite close to Old Aberdeen and is also near Pittodrie, Aberdeen's football grounds. Most of the boys in our school support Aberdeen.
Aberdeen's football team nickname is the Dons. They are a great football team. They have won many cups over the years, the Scottish Cup several times and the European Cup Winners' Cup once.
Aberdeen strip, it kind of stands out from the rest because we're about the only one in the Premier League who's got a red strip.
Seton School is quite near to the beach, and it starts from away at the corner of town, and then it comes right along the side of the town for about 2 miles. But in the winter, the beach is too quiet. It's so cold and no one really wants to go there in the winter. So most people that would be at the beach go to the amusement arcade across the road.
Aberdeen has been called Scotland's city of success, and it's managed to avoid the worst problems of many other cities. But although oil has changed the face of Aberdeen in recent years, there was a thriving city here long before oil came on the scene. And that's the subject of next week's programme. It's called Aberdeen in the Past.